Good evening. Welcome to the September 3rd Canby City Council regular meeting. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing for a moment of silence. Great. Thank you very much. This is actually a continuation of our meeting. We started at 6 this evening. We had an exec session to discuss the employment of some public officer pieces, which we'll get to later in our agenda. Before we move into communications, it appears we have a scout amongst our midst. If he'd like to come up front here, and we'll put you in the hot seat and tell us your name and what you're working on and how you came upon this lovely group of people. If you want to come on up here.
Well, my name is Jedediah Smith, and I'm a scout at Troop 503, and this is part of my requirement for citizenship in the community.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for coming. What are you working towards? Eagle Scout?
Yeah, this is an Eagle required one. Excellent.
Well, good for you.
And if I may, it's been a few years since my scouting. I forget the braided arm.
Yeah, this is for, I'm a den chief for Cub Scouts.
It's terrific. Leadership.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good job. Yeah, thanks for coming. So, any communications at this point? None? Okay. It's our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. If you're wishing to address the council on a non-agenda item, there's some yellow cards there in the back, or we're pretty casual, and if you'd like to just come up and say a few words, we will allow that as well, and Kim will capture your information as we go through, or we and whatnot. Seeing none, great. We'll move into mayor's business. Light report from me tonight. Just the first thing is that this Friday is first Friday of September, so please come on downtown. There'll be lots of events going on and things occurring. There's going to be music at Pudding River Chocolates, from what I understand. They've got a blues band lined up for the evening for outside along the sidewalk, and then the Canby Arts Committee is going to be doing its first public art unveiling along First Avenue. So those lovely plinths that you've seen, and I did say that correctly, thank you, along First Avenue that have been empty and people using them as park benches or to sit and enjoy the lovely First Avenue greenery, they will have art put on them. And if you haven't been down yet, they are covered up very well, padlocked and bolted down, and so please join us. We've got I'll put this in, hopefully Tony, our camera guy, can help us out here. But it's, this for First Friday, starting at 6 o'clock. Hold that up for at home. So please come down and see our first endeavor into, well, I should say maybe perhaps our second, behind bike racks that we did a couple years ago. Right, Councilor Hensley? But a new public art, so please come down. Our Arts and Culture Advisory Committee would really appreciate the support and everyone coming out for that. I think last I have to double check my calendar, but I believe C4 is meeting tomorrow evening. It has been canceled. Thank you. All right. Well, I should get that updated then. So I have nothing really more to report on my end. So we'll start with Councilor Rocha and go from there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Clackamas County Fair. Enjoyed some good fair food and a few rides. It's always interesting when I go out there that we run into people I haven't seen in years and barely recognize, but that's always a fun event. I attended the Canby Fire Board meeting last week. It's an interesting discussion on the role of liaisons in regards to responsibilities and liaison to represent that agency. So I think Chief Davis handled it really well. It will be a topic next month as well, and as they're working on and going over board policies. Lastly, Canby Fire and Police will be having their annual 9/11 memorial ceremony next Thursday, September 11th at Station 62. We'll start at 8 a.m. This year is New York City / World Trade Center Remembrance, and we'll be rededicating the Roddy Morris sculpture and its redesigned name plaques. The theme will be personal reflections on 9/11, what that day means to me. I hope everybody can join and go out there and be involved in that. So,
Now is it 8 a.m., Todd?
8 a.m., yes,
Okay,
at the fire station.
thank you.
And that is all I have.
And then when is the next board meeting that they're
The
having?
third Wednesday, Chief, September, what is, oh, it's on Tuesday this time.
Yeah, it's Tuesday the 22nd.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, along with Councilors Rocha, Dale, and Ryder, had the pleasure of serving pancakes in the park with the Chamber of Commerce on Canby's big weekend before I took in the car show. So I think I spent from 6 a.m. to about 3 p.m. in and around Waite Park, and it was a lovely, lovely Saturday. Other than that, my only liaison report will be for Main Street, and just a reminder, again, Tony, the Kiss Summer Goodbye Party is this Saturday from 4 till 8, again at Waite Park, a lovely place to be. So we'll have food, music, I think we're having wine and beer too, like last year. So
Going for sure.
Good fun in the park. So come join us down at 4 to 8 p.m. on Saturday. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councilor Coleman.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. This Friday, our traffic safety meeting will be meeting at the Public Works Building from 8:30 to 10, and we have special guest Matilda Dees, senior planner with the City of Canby, who's going to discuss Pine Street and the traffic safety plan, and we'll discuss some long-term solutions. So we appreciate all the attendees that come and all the volunteers that have really worked hard to try to help with the traffic safety. So thank you for that. Also, I would like to say the car show was a huge success. This was the 20th year of the Cuts Force Cruise-In. Started about 20 years ago with about 6 to 12 cars in the Thriftway parking lot. And this year they had 450 cars that registered and at least another 50 show quality cars on the grounds. It was a great job by the Canby Cruisers, all the volunteer judges and the others, the Chamber, the Rotary, high school cheerleaders, and all the businesses. I would just encourage the businesses, if they haven't, embraced this event. It really gives people that come from out of town, that come to our community, a chance to really see Canby and all that we have to offer. So if you have a business in the downtown and you haven't participated or learned more about it, it's really a great thing. And we also had a wonderful fair and rodeo here in Canby. Great fun had by all, and that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Council President Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, attended Canby's big weekend, and how many pancakes did they make, Todd?
A lot.
Too many.
There was about 200 people that came through
Mostly
there.
blueberry, if I remember right.
Mostly blueberry
This was
was
a
the
big year
hit
for
this year. It
blueberries.
was a good year for that. So another great weekend for Canby. Just a delight. Great car show, great dahlias. Just all around a wonderful weekend for Canby. I, because of personal reasons, had to miss my last couple Canby Utility Board meetings, so I'll double up next time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Councilor Parker.
Nothing today, thanks.
All right. Easy enough. All right, we'll move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the August 20th, 2014 City Council work session and regular meeting, the minutes of the August 25th, 2014 City Council special meeting, and appointment of Mary Lou Stearns to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to expire on June 30th, 2017.
Great, thank you, sir. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Council Rocha to approve the consent agenda, which include the minutes of the August 20th, 2014 City Council work session and regular meeting, minutes of the August 25th, 2014 City Council special meeting, and appointment of Mary Lou Stearns to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to expire on June 30th of 2017. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. And thank you to Mary Lou Stearns for getting on the Traffic Safety Commission. I appreciate it. That's great. Do we have more openings on there?
No, we have 7, and we're very well represented
Good.
throughout the community, so we're doing good.
Well, I know that there are a number of committee opportunities out there, so if you're interested in getting involved, please visit the city website and please get involved. We can definitely use the ideas and the support there, so thank you. Move into resolutions and ordinances.
The first thing I think we have is ordinance 1398. This is amending chapter 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code. This has been before the council a couple different meetings, and changes have been made. Mr. Brown is here if you have questions.
Great. Thank you, Ken. I think we've pretty well vetted these changes and whatnot. Are there any questions for Brian Brownwhite since he's here? Are we okay with the latest changes and whatnot? So we can finally pass this this piece? Great. I'll take a motion, please.
I'm on the wrong page, I know.
Page 2.
Mr. Mayor, I move
Thank you, Tim.
for ordinance number 1398, an ordinance amending chapter 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ordinance number 1398, an ordinance amending chapter 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, and 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. Takes care of our ordinances this evening. Short and sweet. So new business, first on that piece is the discussion regarding the city administrator recruitment. So within the last week or so, our preferred candidate at the time, Regan Boley, has withdrew his name from the posting and from the process. And so we are going to hopefully move into, it's up to the council, to move into taking a look at and having conversation with and opening up that dialogue with Rick Robinson, who was our other candidate that we really liked quite a bit as well. Is there any discussion on that piece or thoughts? Seeing none? No. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor of Canby to negotiate an employment contract with Rick Robinson within the parameters established by council in the previously approved recruiting profile.
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll all second.
We all second.
Well, appreciate that. Motion's been made by Councilor Dale to authorize myself, the mayor, to negotiate an employment contract with Rick Robinson within the parameters established by council in the previously approved recruiting profile. And that was seconded by Councilor Coleman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that passes 5-0. So we will, next piece of that, I will get with Joe and Amanda, and we'll move into the next pieces with Mr. Robinson and try to get this ironed out and move through the process quickly and efficiently. So thank you all for that. Next under new business is the discussion regarding banners along Highway 99. And I think we've got a little update from Amanda on that.
This is back up for discussion again today. Banners were previously hung, I don't know how long ago, on the bridge across 99. The setup in that area is a little bit different now in that there's a fence that goes across, so it's not so easy to just drop the banners down. Met with some staff to consider some options for reducing exposure to the city and making it the safest project possible. One of the items discussed was creating a fence or an area that staff could walk into to hang the banners over, and then the banners would be inaccessible to other people that were walking. We had our insurance agent go out and take a look at that and look at how we were considering engineering that, and he felt that there was a little bit of risk exposure that might outweigh the benefits. So we've gone back to looking at some other options, and just wanted to talk tonight about if you want to see that go forth. The process would be most likely engineering a rolling gate that you can open, that staff could unlock and open up and drop banners down, and then lock the gate and secure it so they would be inaccessible as well. There's always a little bit of exposure if the wind catches them and they break off, if they're vandalized and somebody cuts them and they drop on the traffic below. We would be looking at things like tethering tools that are being used so they don't drop over the edges. And so that's where we're at now. Public Works would be the key department that would administer the applications. We don't have all the details worked out because we would have to, basically the city would be the cross-through between the applicant and ODOT, because we would need to coordinate that process, permit process with ODOT. We would need to create an application form, determine the design criteria. I think ODOT has some criteria as it relates to the content, in that they don't want advertising, just strict advertising, more advertising as it relates to city events or events within the city limits. The cost also would need to be reviewed. What would it cost? Right now we're looking at an estimate of about 2 hours staff time, 2 people an hour each, to hang a banner and also to remove it by the time we get the equipment and get out there, and administrative time working with ODOT to process that. So we would have to calculate that amount and see what kind of fees we would be looking at, and where the funds would come from if we were to install a rolling fence. So that's kind of where we're at. Just wanted to have a discussion. I think there's still some interest on behalf of the council in hanging the banners there, and we're trying to figure out the way to keep the costs as low as possible and the risk exposure to the city as low as possible as well.
Do we have a price estimate on the, what it would take gate-wise? I mean, just the engineering and creation of this gate?
We have not gone that route yet, no.
Is our configuration that much different than the one that Oregon City uses?
I don't know. I actually talked to one of our staff members, and we thought that if this was something that we really seriously wanted to consider further, we would have a staff member maybe go out and look at some of what the other cities are doing, and look at how they're securing them, what's worked, what hasn't worked, if they've had any issues.
Because I went and looked when we were taking our tour of the mill. I popped up to the bridge there and saw how Oregon City had theirs secured, and it was with a string of chain and a padlock, which I figure you could probably get at Ace Hardware for about $10. So I just want to make sure we're not overthinking this. So I'd like this to proceed. The other thing I'd like to ask staff, because this goes back to the original letter that we got from our insurance agent. I guess it was a letter, or maybe it was a conversation, on cost benefit, that he didn't think it would be worth the exposure. And I'm not sure the city or the insurance agent has given us the benefit of what, if we monetize the number of views that are on the city, on that roadway each day, what that would equal in terms of purchased advertising. I'm going on an old formula of 5 cents a view, and that would roughly be about $175,000 of advertising a year. But I bet somebody can do math better than I can and find out more. Matilda says Matilda has the traffic count there, but I think that would help us feel better that if in fact there's an actual expense, we'd be able to say, but on the other hand, it gets us X number of dollars in advertising, and then I think we'd be able to make a better judgment. But I would encourage the council to support further exploration of this, and also to make sure that we're not overthinking this, because padlock and a couple pieces of chain are how our neighbor to the north is handling this little issue.
And that was my question too, is I work in Gladstone, I drive through that bridge every day, and I always see their signs up. I'm curious what they've done to mitigate issues and liability.
Is that bridge across there, is that a public access bridge?
In Oregon City?
Yes.
It's a walkway.
It's a walkway.
One thing that we did find out from calling a couple other cities is they really didn't go through the assessment of risk exposure. One negative to having your risk manager in the interim position is that's where my brain goes. But also one clarification from our insurance agent, the one recommendation that he had where he said that the exposure outweighed the benefit was as it related specifically to blocking off like a cage, if you will, where staff could go in, and he thought that there was too much exposure and people climbing over that and maybe going too far or getting locked in there. So that particular option was one that he felt was a little bit too much
The
exposure.
cage was a concern.
Right.
Not the banner
Right.
itself.
Again, I really would like to see if we can come up with a simplest approach to this and be able to measure how much we would obtain in exposure advertising. That I think that is the other half of the equation. That if we're going to be spending any money at all, I think we should know what we're getting for it. And I think that is a, if not a provable thing, that is an estimable thing.
When I think to your point, there is that impression factor of seeing that, like you commented, you pass that every day. What's the banner right now, though?
Nothing right now.
Nothing? Okay.
It's only up like Chautauqua Festival and stuff is when it comes up.
So they put it for key things,
Events.
whatever. Because there
It's
is
the
a,
Saturday market in Oregon City.
Yeah.
but there is that marketability piece and the impressions we talk about. Canby's Big Weekend. How many people in Canby drive by that bridge and don't realize that Canby's Big Weekend was that weekend? And I think the conversation we're looking at is how do we create that awareness in our own community as well as those people passing through. West Lynn, I think, does a banner on Highway 43, and I think it's actually just an apparatus that they've created. I'm not sure how they string it across the 43.
Milwaukee does it over 99 too. I think they just have a cable or something.
So I suppose, Amanda, your point about having the risk management piece. But no, I think it's a valid concern, and we have to think about those things. In a litigious society that we are in, we have to think about the pitfalls of what people might do.
Well, the good news is that some other cities are doing it, so we can get some information from them on what is working, what maybe hasn't worked, put together some costs, and then compare them with the trips and kind of give you a little bit better understanding of what the benefit would be in that location.
So I'm saying,
And Mr. Mayor.
yes, sir.
And too often I fail to put ideas into context here, but this is tied into a strategic goal of taking our Main Street program off of the urban renewal funding and becoming self-supporting, and that's going to require the Main Street program doing more promotions like Main Street, where it can not only recover its costs, but provide funding that would replace the funds that are currently in urban renewal, and to start new things, especially in a community like Canby, that only has one source of advertising, and that's the Herald, and if you don't read that, as some people don't, you don't find out about things. As we found out last year with Kiss of Summer, people up to 3 weeks afterwards were saying, how come you didn't tell me about this? So I see the banner project not as being a discrete individual idea, but as actually helping us get to a strategic goal, which is a viable Main Street program that can pay for itself.
And if I could add one thing to that, Mr. Mayor, I think that bridge is a terrible eyesore, no matter which way you're coming, and I think the Main Street would be a great source to come up with some design ideas and concepts that not only could, solve the advertising plan, but could also solve the beautification.
I think the bridge was part of the 90/90 beautification
Yeah.
plan.
We've got some plans on the shelf, I'll show them to you.
Mr. Mayor, I think that it's definitely worth continuing the conversation. and we need to explore all the possibilities. Of course, we need to limit our exposure and liability, that goes without saying, but I think that we need to continue looking at all of the options to see if we can find something that'll work, because I think advertising on that bridge, we're missing out on
I
a
agree.
very big benefit to Main Street and to other organizations that might want to use that for advertising.
So I think, Amanda, possibly, so yeah, looking at what are some different ways of getting it accomplished, and then if Matilda has traffic counts, or if there's a way we can get those, so that at least it gives us an idea of how many cars are passing up and down, and I don't know how specific she can get, but even just if we know what's kind of going up and down that way. She or somebody might be worth reaching out to Clear Channel. They run most of the billboards on 99. They might be, I don't know how free they are with giving impression numbers, but they might be able to give some background. I don't know if that's something that maybe Renata and her expertise might have some contacts there. I don't know, since
We
she's
can ask
here.
for a rate card.
We could, at least that gives us an idea of how they're measuring the success of those billboards, as an example.
Great, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, reviewing just council values and goals, and I initially kind of put that in there as perhaps a space holder, just with new city manager coming on board, if there were priorities within here that we wanted to highlight and make, surface as that new city manager is coming on board, or just as a review for us as a council of what those are. Could be an item for a later date work session, or as we move through the end of this year and begin their next calendar year. I know that we'll be revisiting these pieces as a group. So just, again, as any thoughts or things that we wanted to elevate or add importance to?
The work session would be good.
Yeah, and I would suggest, Mayor, you might want to consider the idea of a facilitated work session of somebody who's used to doing this. Maybe even the new administrator, but someone who can, moderate a discussion and help us get to a conclusion. We did pretty good this year in our review, but I remember 2 years ago, we just sat there and looked at each other and thought, shall we change this to ing or leave it as in past tense? I mean, it might be something that would be worthwhile to find someone with expertise. So I'll leave that up to you and the council president to discuss. But there may be some value in bringing in someone to do a facilitated discussion.
Any thoughts?
I don't have anything specific to discuss on it right now. I think this is a conversation we should have after the new administrator's on board. If no other reason, so that we can kind of bring them up to speed on what we've been working on.
Kind of some of the behind the scenes of what stuff, we talked earlier about irons in the fire and where those irons are coming from, so that at least has a background on that. Okay, I can definitely punt that till later. Good. Next up is discussion regarding options for the sale, lease, or redevelopment of the 4 city buildings in downtown Canby. And Renata is here with that conversation. Hi Renata, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
So I'm here to present an opportunity at your direction with the construction of the Civic Building that leaves a number of our current government buildings vacant or partially vacant, and it's an opportunity to get ahead of things as we look forward to a year and a half or so, to how do we sell those, lease those, redevelop those, to really raise the bar in downtown Canby and maybe change the face of it and get some more activities, some more retail, some more office, some more residential, more consistent with our new design standards that'll stimulate more redevelopment and more investment in our downtown. So I was asked to prepare a couple of options for your consideration and how we could go about that. So to review, the 4 buildings that we're talking about is the City Finance Building and CAP Building, which is now half vacant. The Development Services Building, which is basically half vacant. The back of the building is a warehouse. The Library Building, which will be fully occupied until the new Civic Building is built, and the former police station, which is vacant and ready for sale, redevelopment, whatever the council wishes. So there are 3 options, and they're presented in staff order of preference for your consideration. The first is to launch a request for proposal process. This casts the widest net possible. It might stimulate local businesses that are looking at these buildings as a possibility for expansion. It might spark the interest of some of our local developers that see an opportunity, put their imprint in downtown, or it might get regional interest from developers that might be interested in building a 2-3-story building with retail on the ground level and office or housing on the 2nd or 3rd level. We don't know what interest is out there, but the development community is reawakened now after the recession kind of recedes into memory, and it's a really opportune time to be doing this. The request for proposal process is a tried and true urban renewal tool to spark development, and we would need probably a couple months or so to get together the details that a developer buyer would need to be able to put together a good proposal. So then we would ask for people to consider their ideas, develop them further, express interest, ask questions, take a tour, whatever, couple months, and then we would hope to have proposals before you in the January timeframe to make a decision on. So that is one option. The second option is to have your city staff market these properties on your behalf. We could develop broker sheets. We could list them on multiple listing services that are in the region and also have national reach like CoStar, RMLS, there's others. List them on our city website, use social media to broadcast the word, maybe do a virtual video tour of each of the buildings so people can admire them from afar, and offer tours to people that are interested and see what we find and bring proposals to you as we get interest. I've already talked with a business that's interested in potentially looking at a building, and there's others that I've heard about. So I think we would get a response. The final option would be to contract with a commercial broker. They would bring expertise in commercial real estate to the table. They'd help us to accurately value the property and position it for sale, and have a broader network of ways to get the word out about the property. So each of these proposals have benefits and drawbacks, and our recommendation would be to go with the RFP process first. If that doesn't work, market it ourselves. If that doesn't work, after a year, hire a professional broker to do it for us. So in terms of preparing for this, there's a couple of steps that are obvious. One would be to conduct an appraisal. We really need to know what the market value of the properties are. We've done some preliminary requests to appraisal companies that have done business with the city, have done excellent work in the past. We've got 2 bids ranging from $9,600 to $11,700. They're standing by at your approval to begin work. It would take them 2 to 4 weeks to complete a full appraisal. That would give us a lot of great information about the buildings that we could then turn around into our marketing efforts. Around mid-month, we could tap into the expertise of a regional development marketing expert. I've had the privilege of talking with John Southgate, who's in our audience today, who brings 20 to 30 years of redevelopment experience to the table in the region. So we both, Amanda and I, have talked, and we both feel we do not have the expertise that it takes to get the high caliber of responses that we want for our community. We need someone expert to guide us through this process, and so we would like to have someone on board to create a great RFP that's going to really spark the interest and provide the information that developers need to help us evaluate what we need to do to the properties to make them more marketable. Just general real estate advice, which we don't have in-house. And then finally, we need to be doing a lot of research about the buildings. What are their issues? What are their characteristics? So that we're accurately representing them for sale. So all of that would be launched in September, and some of the tasks would bleed over into October. In October, we would start sprucing up our buildings, removing quite a bit of leftover furniture from previous use and clearing it out, staging it, making it look as presentable as possible. There may be some quick, easy fixes that will make it appear better. We would only be recommending very modest, inexpensive investments because we're, the idea is to sell them, not to invest in them. And then thirdly, we would look in mid-October to launch the RFP process and address questions, reach out to developers that might be interested, do a big education campaign and recruitment campaign to bring forward the best opportunities. And then in January, we hope to have lots of great choices for you to decide among, and based on your decision, we would be negotiating the sale, development, whatever you decide, and move forward from there. And if we decided to go with a private broker representing the sites after you've given us a year to try and market it sufficiently, we would look at October 2015 to begin that effort. So in closing, our recommendation is to start with the RFP process. And I did include some basic information and some photos in the packet. This was based on a facilities plan that the city had done a while back, and basic information that a developer or a buyer would want to know. Of course, we need to gather a lot more information to have a complete picture. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Parker.
Two things. First of all, Mr. Mayor, this is the best staff report I've seen. And Amanda, I suggest that you share this at the next management meeting and show the format, and that at least one councilor appreciates. A two-page report that presents options and a preferred recommendation. This is exactly what policymakers need to get rid of what I call unnecessary accuracy. There are a lot of accurate facts out there. I only need a few. Second, I think that one of the things I would encourage the council to consider is, as this city becomes perhaps smaller and has fewer employees, that we have to be willing to go out and contract to get the sort of help we need when we have individual projects. And I think we've got the candle burning at both ends in a number of our departments, but especially this one. And I don't want to take Renata's time out of the key job that she does to be doing some of this other stuff. So I would certainly support going along with her suggestion, bringing in whatever sort of assistance we need to do this. I like to think of us as a policy board, and the policy recommendation I have is sell it and sell it quick. And you figure out the best way of doing it.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Coleman?
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you, Renata. This is a terrific presentation. A couple of questions I would have for you. Obviously, I think some of the things that strike me are, I like the idea of marketing the buildings, but I like the idea of them having the best use, the best business attracted to that space. And I was just going to ask, do you have examples of where the RFP process has worked in other communities, and like in the old town of Oregon City, was it used there at all, or?
I would refer to John Southgate. Would you like to mention some examples?
Yeah, love to hear from you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the invitation via Renata to come here. To answer the question, if I were going to talk, I wanted to talk a little bit about my work in downtown Hillsborough. Anyone here been to Main Street Hillsborough, downtown Hillsborough? Mm-hmm. We used a couple of somewhat different variations on the same theme of the development offering for the Venetian Theater. If you're familiar with that was a city-owned property. Similarly, let's sell the property. The city didn't want to hold on to this obsolete building that was not helping downtown. It was actually hurting because it was dark and it was continuing to decay. So we use a little bit of a different from RFP, but similar to the request for expressions of interest. We just put out on the street, is anyone interested in this building? Our goal is simply to promote a more healthy Main Street in Hillsborough, and I assume it's similar to here to have a healthy downtown can be. So Mr. or Ms. prospective developer, what do you propose for the site? What's your idea, expression of idea, and tell us a little bit about your qualifications. And so, yes, in that case, it was successful in getting that old, if you know downtown Hillsborough, the old theater is now kind of the centerpiece of downtown revitalization. Similar process we use for the old Wells Fargo Bank site. Again, I don't want to assume you're too familiar with Hillsborough, but it was an old abandoned mid-century bank building. We did a development offering, and we got a developer who they opened a few months ago. It's a mixed-use apartment, 71 new market-rate apartments, tap room to bring more energy, and then the old bank building's going to be brought back to life. Several ideas being kicked around for that. So that model, I think, as Renata said, it's a tried and true formula. The one little thing I would throw in there, and we talked about this, and I think we're in agreement, when you do a development offering, you want to have a pretty good sense that there is developer interest. You don't want to do an offering and then have nothing come back. And I think part of what I would help you with is using my contacts in the development community around the region, let them know there's this opportunity to do some developer interviews, use that as a springboard to what's the most intelligent development offering, what do developers want to hear, and hopefully also gauge some interest. And hopefully over the next several weeks we find, hey, we got, in the case of the town theater, we knew we had at least one serious developer who ultimately proved to be the one we selected. And so we were confident, yes, let's do this development offering now because we know we have interest, and that person at least, and perhaps others, know what we're trying to achieve, and we think is able to deliver it. And that's exactly what happened. Long-winded answer to a simple question.
Well, thank you very much. The thing I like about this process is, any business that locates in the downtown especially, you want them to succeed. You want to have every opportunity to succeed. And I think that, I think of this process, if we want to go faster, we need to slow down to go faster. And I think that this process can breathe some real life into identifying the best case scenario for these various buildings. And, none of us know how much interest is going to be generated. And I think that, I'm certainly hopeful that if we choose this route, we'd be pleasantly surprised. And I think that, there'd be an awful lot of great ideas that would come forward about the possibilities. And I think those possibilities are going to give whatever businesses locate the best opportunity for success. And I think in the long run, it's going to be the best rate of return for our citizens. And that's really what I like. So thank you.
The RFP process, can you educate us a little? What's the real advantage of it versus just turning it over to a commercial broker? Is it more targeted? Is it a better presentation?
I think with a commercial broker, you would get perhaps a variety of expressions of interest, but they wouldn't all be before you to weigh against each other at the same time.
Okay.
And the RFP casts the net really broadly. For instance, you might get a local business that wants to buy a building versus a regional developer that would like to buy 2 of the buildings, tear them down, and build a 3-story building. So it unleashes more creative ideas, I think. Especially since we're marketing 4 buildings in the downtown, it's not just one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of creative minds out there that see market opportunity, and if we package it well and provide information that's also targeted toward developers. You know, if you're a real estate broker, you have a broker sheet, and it's really more transactional. It's not really encouraging people to tear down a building and envision something new. Whereas if you do a development, a request for proposals, it's a much more open stance.
Fair enough.
It brings an interesting, I think, approach. Because I think if you look at the buildings that we're talking about, I think you just use the old PD as an example, you could market that building in its own right as a developable building, create something and put it in there, give it some curb appeal, and it would continue to be a standalone building and do probably very well whatever goes in there. Whereas you take something like the finance building and CAP building, when we talked about the whole idea of this, the civic building and being able to consolidate so that we could take something like that house that doesn't seem to really fit what's going on downtown, in hopes that somebody would